Hey, welcome back. I'm Paul Gregory, your host. The show is called Positively Paul, and we come to you live on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Pacific. And for those of you who are in Hawaii, it's whenever you come in from surfing. And such is the way. We come to you via our streaming service, which is Ustream, and you can reach us by going to Ustream at ustream.tv/channel/positively-Paul. Yeah, that's a mouthful. So we give you a few other options, one of which is to search Positively Paul on the Ustream mobile app. Yeah, we got one of those. That's very cool. And I'm going to make a slight adjustment here on my camera so that I can see you and you can see me better. So anyway, you can search Positively Paul on the Ustream mobile app and get us. And mobile app means you can get us at the airport. If you download that mobile app and you're sitting in the airport and you have nothing to do, you can watch the show and grab an episode here and there. If you have a Facebook account, and I don't know too many people that don't, you can reach us by going to www.facebook.com/PositivelyPaul. And we hope that you'll write in to us, and you can do that by going to our email address, which is paulgregory@skywayShow.com. It's been an interesting week, needless to say, and I want to tell you a little bit about today's show because it's a different kind of show. It's something a little out of the ordinary, and for those of you watching who are car people, this is going to be very, very interesting. And my guest today has been around for a long, long time with these cars, and in and outside of them, and outside of them. And I'm really, really looking forward to this interview today. But before we get to that, I want to say hello to some folks up in Detroit who actually are also car people, and they're watching this afternoon. And I know they're also trying to. I know you're trying to watch the kids. Anyway, I want to say hello to the family up there, and my reason for bringing them up is because they are, how shall I put this, big fans of what my guest today is involved in. So anyway, Mike and Lindsay Nera up in the Motor City, we're glad to have you on board, and we're glad to have you watching the show today. It's one of those things where right now the weather is what the weather is, and we're all trying to handle this cold as it keeps coming down, and we're being fooled again because now all of a sudden it's warm. Now all of a sudden it's warmed up a little bit. And if you're outside of the jet stream, then you get that comfort zone, so to speak. If you're inside of the jet stream, then, I think it's like kind of being covered in cold, which is not always the most fun thing in the world, but it is what it is. In Los Angeles right now, it is overcast with 65 degrees. In Denver, it's 22 degrees and slightly overcast skies. In Chicago, it's 43, and that's probably about right for Chicago. Not sunny really anywhere today. In Miami, it's 77 degrees and warm with a slight sun, slight overcast. And in New York, it's 53. For them, it's really, really warm. They love this kind of weather. In London, of all places, it's 52 degrees, and of course, right now we're at about a 6-hour time difference, so it's in the late evening hours for them. And in Tokyo, it's 55 degrees, and they too are having a kind of a nighttime scenario. I wanted to say just a little bit. We want to remember to thank veterans this week, and I don't care what branch of the service it is. I don't care where they are, or what whenever you see them, if you see somebody in a car that drives up and it's got a veterans plate on it, for any one of the military branches, say thanks. It's a good thing. They'll love you for it, and it's a good thing to do. I don't care what branch of the military it is, but just do it. Show a little compassion and say thanks to these folks. Also, I want to remind you, we run a 1-minute public service announcement for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital because here at Positively Paul, we believe in their mission. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, located in Memphis, Tennessee, has a main mission and a main goal in mind, and that is to help fight childhood cancers. I don't know too many people these days that don't have children and that don't think about their kids' health. This is a really, really great opportunity for you to make a tax deduction. Did you hear that? do that. Make a tax contribution, a contribution, a donation. It is, again, a tax deduction to you by going to stjude.org. We love what they're doing. We are helping kind of promote their cause, and so we run this PSA, or public service announcement, for them. I also want to say hello to our good friend of the show, Doug Schuster, who is watching the show. And Doug has graciously offered to come back, as he has in the past, to talk about some wines and spirits next month. So we're looking forward to that. I will give you an air date as we get closer to that show, because I know that you guys watching love it when he comes in, and it's always a good time with Doug. We're going through a bit of a change in things in this day and age, and we appropriately title the show Positively, Paul, because I'm not a negatively kind of guy. Can I say negatively? I think I can. And so we try to bring you shows that are a little bit different, something that's just kind of you think about it, but that's about all you do. It kind of you see something, or you hear something, or you go to an event, and we've had rodeo announcer on the show. We've had people in the wine business. We've had people who talk about Social Security, and a host of other different shows. Today's show is a little bit different than all of that, because America's love with the automobile has been around since the automobile. And in particular, my guest today is one who has been involved in the automobile industry, or industry in the business of automobiles and restoration since, oh gosh, it's been a long time. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a little while, yes.
And I think that as we go through this program, and as we talk about some of these cars, I want to kind of focus on the title. The title of this program is Mopars. We know them, we love them. So yeah, it's we're not talking about Ford or Chevy or any of those other cars. We're just talking about Mopar. Okay, all right, good. So it's a different kind of situation. Chrysler produced a certain number of these cars back in the day. And everybody, their counterparts, their competitors, everybody wanted to get into the muscle car business, or high performance cars, because back in the day, back in the late 60s and early 70s, the automobile industry was looking for something to sort of spark people's curiosity. There were hot rods for years back in the 50s, but no one really kind of put a new modern twist to this whole situation. So now we've got our muscle cars, basically high performance engines, special suspensions, and it's not just a paint job and a fancy set of wheels. These are cars that are serious high performance cars. So what I want to do is kind of focus this interview with my guest on all the things that's kind of allowed this to happen in his world. And in my world, I've owned a muscle car, and it was a lot of fun to restore it and to put it together and to kind of see how things really came out as I got the car finished and got to show it and drive it around and have some fun with it. Now it's a little different situation, because all these years later, here we are, 2014, as a period of time has gone by, these cars, because a limited number of them were produced in a limited number, they become more valuable. They become specialty cars. They become specialized cars. They become preferred cars. They become the cars that people really would like to own and maintain and take care of and have fun with. That's kind of the thrust. That's the focus of this show, is to try to talk about the Mopar, which was Chrysler's Mopar. Ford had the Mustang, Chevrolet had the Camaro, American Motors had its share, and everybody's got their particular piece of the pie, the muscle car pie. All the muscle cars kind of came into existence as a result of the muscle car era. And that era, or that roughly 10-year period, it allowed these cars to kind of come into existence. It allowed people to drive the cars, to have fun with them. And back in the day, and for those of you who were not born at that time or many years later, this was a day when, or a time when, you could order a car from the dealer with a variety of options. Today, it's sort of limited. It's not quite the same thing. But you could order different wheels. You could order different interior color with different exterior color. Or you could order one side mirror or two side mirrors, or one was remote, or you could have an air-conditioned car or not an air-conditioned car. But it was interesting because all of the cars that came out competed with each other, not to mention inter-competition within Chevrolet. You had Camaros, you had Corvettes. Within Buick, you had the Grand Sport. You had you had Skyhawks and Skylarks and all these other cars that were part of it, but you had the muscle car version, which was the Grand Sport. With Chrysler, it was a little different because Chrysler had a number of different cars. Chrysler had the Charger, Chrysler had the Challenger, Chrysler had the Barracuda, and all of these cars, each of these divisions of Chrysler, not only had their version of the muscle car, they competed with one another, and it was an interesting time. Now, all these years later, we have these cars that are they've been stored in barns for 25 or 30 years or longer, and people have bought the cars, not driven them, or stopped driving them for one reason or another. Now, there are people who are looking for these cars because there were so few built. There were limited numbers of these cars produced. When we come back from the break, I'm going to introduce you to a guy that's been at this for just about 20 years, restoring these cars, bringing them back to life again. And there's a very special kind of story attached to the story here about his dad, and a very special car that comes out of this. Before we go to the break, I want to tell you that now that we've passed Thanksgiving and Black Friday, of course, remember that safety on the roads is critical. We want to make sure you're not drinking and driving. We want to make sure you're not texting and driving, because there's so many people out there that do just that. The drinkers decide to drink at night, which is probably one of the worst times if you're going to drink and drive. Hopefully you don't drink and drive. Hopefully you don't consume alcohol and drive your car or attempt to. But mostly important, above and beyond it all, texting and driving is a big mistake. Don't do it. Too many accidents have been caused. Too many younger people have lost their lives. Too many older people have lost their lives as a result of people who text and drive. Stay away from it. Don't do it. Now, I'm coming off my pedestal. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. Don't go away.
And I had no idea. Well, Walgreens has your back.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
back. The music in the background, I decided I wanted to use because it was probably most appropriate for the show today. And it's about the car, as I was telling it. This is just, it's about the car, the Barracuda. Plymouth Barracuda came out a long time ago, and probably one of the few unique cars of its own. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a gentleman named DJ Bouchong, who is the president and CEO of a company called Rare Finds Restoration. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I understand, DJ, welcome to the show. I understand that the name Rare Finds, you spelled it Raare.
Yes.
Why?
My car is an AAR CUDA, which was built for Trans Am Racing in 1970. AAR stands for All American Racers. And rather than just have the name Rare, R-A-R-E, I put that insignia and design into the sign of my business.
See, I thought that was unique.
Yeah.
Because the car is rare.
Yeah.
And it's AAR. It was probably nothing to you. It was probably no brainer to you. But it was interesting, needless to say. I saw when I first drove up to the shop. In fact, when I first got your card, because I was at the Mopar Nationals last year, and so I got your card, and I looked at the card, and I thought, this is unique, but what is AAR? I had no idea what it was, and then you told me what it was. Welcome to the show, DJ. I want to talk just for a moment about this whole situation of restoration. Now, before I ask the question, I want to put things into perspective. There are experts, there are knowledgeable people, and there are amateurs like me. And so, do you consider yourself an expert, or do you consider yourself a super knowledgeable guy in Mopar?
I wouldn't call myself an expert, just because about the time I do is when someone will correct me. But I want to say that, yes, I'm knowledgeable.
Okay, all right. So that said, then you're familiar with the idea, the concept, the notion of what I was talking about before break. Chrysler has all these different entities. You know, they have Plymouth and they have Chrysler and Dodge. And actually, Chrysler is what, the parent
Yes.
for Plymouth and Dodge. So within Chrysler Corporation's entity of all these muscle cars, were they, in fact, was I right on that? They had intercompetition between these cars?
Absolutely.
So with that said, then, who was really better, the Charger or the Barracuda? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, my personal preference would be the Barracuda, but Charger is a lot more mainstream than the Barracuda is.
Mm-hmm.
With the media and the way that things are, you know, you've got your Barracuda on Nash Bridges, or you've got your Charger on the Dukes of Hazzard. But no, there's been Barracudas on TV for a long time.
Yeah.
The Brady Bunch had a Barracuda.
The Brady Bunch had a Barracuda.
Had a Barracuda convertible.
Well, see, all I remember was the Beverly Hillbillies, the woman who worked for the banker, had a Challenger.
Okay.
Okay? So there's three cars on TV. Now, remember that in the movies, of course, we had the Charger that was used in Bullet.
Yes.
And we had the Charger that was used in the most recent movie, The Fast and the Furious.
Yes.
A while back. And then, of course, we had the Challenger RT that was used in the movie Vanishing Point.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've got cars that I don't think I ever saw a Z28 Camaro in a movie.
The movie probably distracted you from the car.
Yeah, I think so.
It would be easy enough to do.
Well, like the girl in the movie. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So so they have their place in entertainment, and they have their place in kind of history. And these cars they're amazing. They're really, really amazing. What can you tell me and the audience about your personal story with this and how you got started and kind of what brought you to where you are today?
Well, I as a young child, I liked these cars because my dad owned one actually two in 1973. My father graduated high school in 74, but his second car was a 1970 AAR Cuda, which happens to be the car I own today.
Mm-hmm.
He sold that car when I was 2, maybe 3 years old. But as an infant in 1975, I came home from the hospital in that car. And then as I became older, we kept track of the car somewhat as I was young, 5, 6 years old. But I lost track of it by the time I was maybe 8. Well, as I turned 18 and bought my first car to restore, I started meeting people and going around looking at parts, considering buying other parts, and I really got into this fast. As soon as I was 18 and bought my first one, then I got into it pretty thick.
Yeah.
But I always had the picture of that car in the console.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I ran into a gentleman and was asking him about that car because he said he was from that town.
Yeah.
And he gave me a good strong lead on where it was, and from that point on, I basically went door to door and found my father's old car. Purchased it back and then restored it myself. So there's 5 owners between us and 23 years difference in ownership.
Wow. And that car today is covered up and it's in a garage and it's babied, isn't it?
It is. It is. But in the summer, it's abused.
It's abused?
It's abused in the summer, yeah.
So who gets to drive it the most, you or your dad?
I do.
You do?
Yep.
Okay.
I
well, rightly so. You restored it, right?
Well, that's why I built him his own.
Oh, you built his own? Oh.
Yeah. My father's had an artificial hip on his left side and can't drive a 4-speed anymore. And when he made comments that he really wished he had that car back, I took it upon myself to build him an automatic.
Oh, there you go.
So
aren't you the great son?
Wow.
Well, I asked my dad about a car, and he said, yeah, and it turned out to be an old, beat-up 1963 Chevy Impala with a 3 on the tree, not a whole lot of fun, but I had fun with it. The car, in fact, I learned, before I could drive it, I had gotten it when I was 16, I had gotten it when I was 15, and I asked my dad, can we take it down the driveway? And yeah, that's okay. You'll be fine. You know how to work the car, and I know how to work the car. But I learned how to change a head gasket while I was 15, and I thought, okay, this is my chance to really learn this stuff. Well, then my folks gave me a plastic model of something called the Visible V8, which is a plastic engine.
Yep.
And I learned about how the internal combustion engine works. From there, I've got a list that's about that long, and there's about 30 cars on that, and I went through all of this stuff, and I'm impressed. I'm thoroughly impressed with the fact that you rebuild these cars from scratch almost. I mean, I've been to your shop and I've seen them, and I understand we have some photographs of cars that you've been in and out of and around.
Yeah.
Brent, can we take a look at some of those? Yeah, okay. So DJ, what is this? What are we looking at?
The gold one there is a 14,000 original mile 71 Dodge Charger RT. And that car came with a 426 Hemi and a 4-speed.
Wow.
That car is one of 30 made.
Man.
And that's only breaking it down by the engine and transmission options. That doesn't break it down by color or, whether or not it had rear window louvers or spoilers or any of those other factory options.
Mm-hmm.
That is just one of 30 as that body with that motor and that transmission.
Wow. And I see another car coming up. This one really looks interesting because what year is it? It looks like a 68 or 69 Charger.
It's a 67 Dodge Charger. A friend of mine brought that to me, and when he brought it to me, it didn't run quite the way he wanted it to, and it was leaking a little bit around the windows, and what turned into make my motor run a little bit better turned into rebuilding the engine, the transmission, the rear end, pulling both front and back windows out, recovering the front seats, putting new windshield seals in, new weather stripping.
You did it all.
Body and paint was done. Other than that, I did the rest.
Oh, man. And now, was it originally a black car?
No, that car was originally a pale yellow car. And in the picture, it looks black, but it's actually a very dark blue.
I like that. So now, as we get back to the conversation for a minute, let me ask you this: you've been working on these cars for a long time. How do you do this? Do you do this in your spare time? I know you have a business, but did you, when you started out, was this in your spare time? You grab an hour here, grab an hour there, or were you childless? I understand you have 2 daughters. Were you childless at the time when this all kind of manifest itself?
At 18, I wasn't in any hurry to get into a relationship or get married. So this was what I did when I wasn't at work. And how it started out was I had bought my first car to fix up myself. Well, I found the easiest way to be able to do that was find other cars that I could turn.
Yeah.
Or work on and make a little bit of money on them to put that money back into the car I wanted to keep. So it just became a huge circle.
Kind of a 360 kind of.
It became a big vicious circle, because then I'm buying every car known to man in my area.
Yeah.
That's something I desired, because I'd take the extra parts and sell them at a swap meet, make all these connections, and get other parts that I need for the car I want to keep. But it helped me afford what I wanted to do without taking away from my budget from my family, which I didn't have at that time, but I do now. And it still works in the same principle.
Yeah. Now on a sort of a more personal level, do your girls like to see the cars?
Oh, they love the cars. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've made them very opinionated. So if you were to ask them about a Chevrolet or a Ford, they're both going to say that's a bad word in our house.
Oh God, I love it. Train them right now.
Yeah, my oldest daughter said "CUDA" before she ever said the word "mom."
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's cool.
That is a fact.
That's cool.
I don't know if it's cool to their mother, but it's cool to me.
Well, so let's take a quick sidestep. Tell me, what are your daughters' names?
My oldest daughter's name is Kristen.
Hello, Kristen. Dad's here, and this is great. And your youngest daughter?
My youngest is Kelsey.
Kelsey. Hey, Kelsey. We're glad you're watching. We're glad both of you guys are watching the show. I think of all the things that I miss, and I've said this to my audience in the past, as I lost a son many years ago, and there's got to be a great feeling that your daughters, and it's not just because you're dad, it's because there's something there. There's sort of a connection.
Absolutely.
Which is very, very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. So now let me do this, because we're going to take a short break here in a minute. But what is the situation with respect to restoration in general? Is this something that did it take you a long time to build this business, or was this something that sort of came quickly?
The mechanical side of it came quickly for me. Building engines or transmissions, mechanically, that part came easy. It was several years of developing an ability as far as body work or welding and painting. Those things aren't something that you learn overnight. That takes time. And fortunately for me, I have a good mind for numbers. So one of the biggest aspects of restoration as far as the Mopar world is knowing your numbers, knowing VIN numbers, knowing option codes, knowing casting numbers and part numbers. But no, it definitely doesn't happen overnight.
See, I know I asked you something about an engine in your shop, and I'm looking at the engine. And folks, I mean, I don't know much about this stuff, but I'm looking at the engine, and DJ said to me, he says, "You see that K right there?" I said, "Where?" He says, "That K right there." And he pointed to a letter on the block. He says, "You know what that means?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, it means that it was produced in such and such a year, and that was only used in this particular car." I mean, it was amazing what this guy knows. So it is what it is. Well, we'll continue this discussion. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. There's much more ahead.
Hey y'all, Cedric the Entertainer here with Niecy Nash, taking a break from shooting The Soul Man to introduce you to Patience.
Hi.
Patience is a patient at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for anything because all a family should worry about is helping their child live.
St. Jude won't give up until they end childhood cancer, sickle cell, and other deadly diseases.
Because of you, there is St. Jude.
Learn more at stjude.org.
Every single one of his medical bills, everything is just all taken care of.
Saber que el tratamiento es completamente gratis nos quita una preocupación de encima.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because the only thing a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Because of you.
Gracias a ti.
Because of you.
There is St. Jude.
Never a dull moment in this show, is there? We're talking with DJ Bouchon, who is the president and owner of a restoration company called Rare Finds, spelled R-A-A-R-E. And the AAR, of course, is the, and I didn't get it right. It's the American
All American Racers.
All American Racers. Okay. Well, I had association and slipped in there, but I don't know. I'm not Anyway, so DJ, welcome to the show. For those who are tuning in late, we had an email come in, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But I want to kind of conclude what we were, or finish up what I was asking you about, or about to ask you before. In the net scheme of things with restoration, for those who want to get involved in this, not necessarily from a business standpoint to hang a shingle out and build a building or buy a building or whatever, but from the standpoint of restoring a car for yourself, are there specifics, just maybe three things that somebody should keep in mind when they're going to do this sort of thing? What 3 or 4 things can you offer up? Because you've been in this a long time.
Well, first, have a reasonable expectation of what you want out of the vehicle when you're finished and what your priority is to do with it when it's done. If you're building a car for yourself, 1, figure out what your budget is. 2, decide, is this going to be a car I'm going to show? Is it going to be a car I'm going to drive? Or is this a car I'm going to sell when I'm done? You need to have a reasonable expectation of where you can come in with that budget, but also make sure the car that you're buying to do this with is a car that you love, no matter what. Whether you're going to drive it, show it, or sell it, you need to love this car.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you are not going to enjoy showing it, driving it, and if you don't sell it, you're stuck with a car you don't like.
Yeah.
So
what I discovered with a Firebird was when I first got involved in that, the whole idea was it was a car that I loved. It was my first love. It was the car that I wanted more than anything, and that was because I had seen the car driven by a neighbor that lived near where my folks lived. And at the time, I washed and waxed cars. I was just I was new in this whole scenario of stuff. And the guy who owned this particular car had called my folks up and said, is Paul there? And he called and asked for me, and he said, I understand you detail cars. No, I wash and wax cars. Well, I knew what he meant. At any rate, I fell in love with this car because I got to drive it to the car wash and wash it and then bring it home and clean it up, wax it. And it was that instant connection that I made with that car. Fell in love with that car. So some people want to do this because it's really truly a passion. It's
Absolutely.
Something you've gone after for years. You couldn't afford it, or whatever the case be. But now they have a budget. They've got some money put away for this or whatever. So I relate to that. I identify that. DJ, we had this email that came in just now, and somebody wanted to find a Dodge Challenger. What do you recommend in terms of people who are searching for cars that they're looking for something. I think this individual is looking for a black Challenger. I think I've got that right. And how can you help us with something like this?
Well, the first place, in my opinion, to go, especially when it involves a Mopar product, is Mopar Collector's Guide magazine.
Okay.
That would be your first step. Mm-hmm. After that, I would probably go with a Hemmings Motor News.
Okay.
Those two publications have the highest output, I believe, of classified ads.
I found my Firebird in Hemmings.
Yeah. So those are the two I would start with. But no, there are forums on the internet of Moparts. There are forums you can go on and ask, and there's classifieds there also of cars people that won and cars people have for sale.
Yeah.
So those would probably be the first three, but Mopar Collector's Guide being the first.
Interesting. Hey, I want to take a very short break to let you know how you can reach us. We are here live on Sundays. My name is Paul Gregory. The show is called Positively Paul. You can reach us here live at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, and 1 p.m. Pacific Time. You can do that by going to our streaming service, which is Ustream. And you can get us at ustream.tv/channel/positively-Paul. Or if you have a Facebook account, you can reach us by going to www.facebook.com/positivelypaul. Also, if you would write us, we would love to hear from you. Hopefully positive comments, because we hope we've done a great thing here in bringing this show to you. You can write us at paulgregory@skywayshow.com. I think it's a great thing that people want to build these cars and bring them back to life again. There's just, there weren't many of them produced in a number of cases. I know in terms of just the basic generic car, there may have been, 60 or 70,000 cars produced. However, if you're diligent and if you're careful and if you're patient, you can find that diamond in the rough.
Well, yeah, any given weekend you could drive around out in the country, at least in our area. The three most populated states for American muscle cars are close to Detroit. You've got Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Mm-hmm. That's your most highly populated states to have muscle cars.
What about the people in California? I mean, there are plants out in California.
Well, there are, but those plants didn't produce the cars in as many, not anywhere near as many as what came out of Detroit.
Okay.
So your population of muscle cars is higher here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, the cars here, would you say more of the specialty cars were produced in this part of the country? In other words, the sort of the rare RARE finds.
Yeah, I would say that's there's truth to that. You've got to realize in Midwest Ohio, or in this area in the late 60s, early 70s, drag racing was huge.
Yeah.
There were a lot of drag race tracks around here. There were a lot of competitions, even on streets maybe that shouldn't have been, but
yeah,
that's what stirred a lot of these cars, was the competitiveness between manufacturers to have the fastest vehicle.
Yeah.
You brought up about that the muscle car era was in the late 60s, early 70s. Well, if you follow some of the ads today, we're entering a new muscle car era.
Yeah.
With some of these cars that are coming out.
Yeah.
And it's a competition between automakers.
Yeah. Well, of course, the studio's located, sort of on the eastern. You had to drive today.
Yeah.
But we're still in Ohio, but we're east of a lot of these areas. And I don't know, you say Pennsylvania has some of these cars.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So really, when all is said and done, it's kind of a round group of 3 states that are the primary.
Yeah, that would be your primary area to look for them if that's what you're doing. But you have to realize it has been 40 years since a lot of these cars were manufactured. They've been dispersed all over the place. That's not to say you can't find a rare gem in Florida or California or Iowa.
Well, see, now what I heard, and I don't know if this is necessarily true with all of these cars, but I had heard somebody say one time that if the car came from a warm climate, the engines wore out before the bodies wore out. So the bodies weren't rusted. I don't know if that's true or not true.
There may be some truth to that. I guess it just depends on how much they were driven. A warmer climate would give you more opportunity to drive them, because these cars don't run well in the cold. They're not.
No.
No. A lot of these cars in cold weather or even rainy weather are scary to drive. They're light in the rear end, they're high horsepower, and they can do a circle before you know it and end up against a pole.
Well, except that what I was looking at was the notion of, here you have a car in, all this cold weather, and you've got salt on the ground that eats through the bodies.
Exactly.
As opposed to in the South, where you've got, people drive them because they can.
Yeah.
They can drive them all year round.
Right, and wear out the drivetrain. Right?
And wear out the drivetrain, that's right. Yeah. So I guess for me, this has always been sort of a hobby, and I wasn't going to mention it on the show, but yes, I'm getting ready to restoring one of these cars, and I'm thrilled about it. But to me, it was again, it's sort of a passion for me, and I think that for anybody who gets into this, some of the older folks, so to speak. I don't want to age myself too much, but we grew up with these cars. Mm-hmm. So we were at the point of impact, in a manner of speaking. I think there are a lot of cars today that people, they buy because there's a love for it. Mm-hmm. I know a guy who's building a 1972 Challenger. Sweet car, 4-speed, 440 Magnum, nice car. I think it's a 440. Anyway, there's a love there, and I think that's the greatest thing about these cars, is that we have a passion for them. Mm. It's sort of like the connection of music. These cars, like music that was written and produced and recorded back then, we listen to it still today. Just as the same thing as you go to a car show and you see a Challenger or a Barracuda or a Mustang or Camaro or whatever it happens to be. There's an immediate connection, even with the generations that you're in a different situation because you've restored these cars.
I guess if I could interject a little bit,
yeah.
One of the biggest things to me about these cars are the memories that they bring back for people. My earliest memories that I have were riding in my father's cars.
There you go.
Same way with the people that were around when the cars were new.
Mm-hmm.
They remember when those cars rolled off the assembly line and how they looked and how they sounded. And they may not have been able to afford one.
No, but they
wanted one.
Yeah, real bad.
And to this day, that those memories don't leave people.
No, they don't.
That was, I guess, the other thing I was going to say for the person who emailed in. Yes, you could go with those 3 publications or the internet, but also if you know someone who restores cars, whether that's their brand of car or not, don't be afraid to ask, because us car guys, we may not own all of them, but we keep track of them in the back of our mind of where they're at, where they're sitting, are they available? Mm-hmm. So that's always an option also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things that was really sort of got to me was when I met you at the car show, at the Muscle Car, or at the Mopar Nationals this year actually. There was an immediate kind of connection here. When I was working on the Firebird, I had other people help me restore that car, doing things I couldn't do. I couldn't put a lift in my garage, and I didn't know anything about tearing into braking systems and all that stuff. But you seem to have this knowledge base, and that's impressive, because I would be at a complete loss if I didn't know you to restore the car that I'm about to restore. I think in general terms, it's fun. It's a very different kind of hobby.
Yes.
Everybody has their hobbies. Some people like painting. Some people like working in the garden. Some people like building furniture. But cars, whole different set of rules.
Well, there's a lot more to that hobby. It's a lot of people say, well, I built my own engine. Or certain guys don't like mechanical things and they would rather do body work and paint.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find one person that can do every aspect of their own car.
Mhm.
Cover the seats,
Yeah.
do the electrical,
Yeah.
the mechanical, and the paint side of it.
Yeah, I think it's very, very cool. I think it's always one of those situations where you try to put everything into perspective, and hey, this is it. I'm going to have a great time with this.
Oh yeah.
So, hey, we're going to take another short break. We will be right back. Don't go away.
They just told us right away that we're gonna house you, we're gonna feed you, and every single one of his medical bills is just all taken care of.
Saber que el tratamiento es completamente gratis nos quita una preocupación de encima.
We have phenomenal research, outstanding clinical care, and the generosity of public, which allow us to treat patients regardless of what it takes. And that's what makes St. Jude so magical.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because the only thing a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Doctors send us the toughest cases to be treated at St. Jude, and our patients come from all over the world.
When we come here, they told me, don't worry, everything's been taken care of. We could never repay St. Jude for what they've given us.
Because of you.
Gracias a ti.
Because of you.
There is St. Jude.
Okay, we're back. Hey, I love that song. Hart produced that song and recorded that song and released that song, Barracuda, and I think it's absolutely appropriate for the show. It was, I thought, what am I going to do? I can't have easy listening jazz music for a Barracuda. So, hey, DJ, I wanted to ask you, and I want to make sure we get a chance to help the folks at home. We just had the gentleman email in. Can anybody contact you if they're interested in looking for Mopars? Do you?
Oh yes, absolutely. You can contact me through Facebook at DJ Bushong, or my shop page is Rare Finds Mopar Cars and Parts.
Yeah, we're going to put that up on the screen momentarily, but I wanted to just kind of find out if that was okay with you.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, that's
good.
Fine.
All right. Well, we'll put that up on the screen shortly. I think in the long run, when it comes to hobbies and when it comes to this whole process of restoring cars, I know it's a tremendous learning experience for a lot of people, and I think that for me in particular, it's probably no different than it is for the average individual out there who can budget and put away to do something like this. I want to round out this situation, this discussion, this experience, this show, and this story by asking you when you finish a car, and we had talked about this in the recent past, when you finish a car and you're just not sure, what was your encouragement to keep the car and not sell it? Because some of these cars are worth a lot of money. And some people want to buy them and they restore them and they want to sell them and get rid of them. What's your encouragement for folks to keep them?
To keep them? Well, I guess my thing is in the summertime, there's nothing better than getting your classic car out of the garage and going for a ride, even if the radio's not on, just with the wind blowing in your hair, driving around the lake, or in my instance, with my two little girls in the back seat, bouncing around and dancing and singing.
Yeah.
We don't need the radio, and we have fun. It doesn't matter where we're going or what we're going to be doing. If we're in the car, we're generally having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would struggle. I struggle with getting rid of any of my cars, but but I don't ever, like I say, it's to me, I don't buy them because of the financial side of it. I buy them because I like them and I'd like to keep them all.
Yeah.
But there's times you have to realize that this is how I make my living, so I can't keep them all.
Yeah. Well, you would need a bigger garage, right?
Yeah, I'd run out of storage in a hurry.
Brent, can we put that up on the screen? Put his address for the folks at home, and that way we can see what's happening. While he's getting that ready, DJ, where's your shop located?
I'm in Kenton, Ohio. I'm on 908 West Lima Street.
Okay.
In Kenton, Ohio.
In Kenton. Okay. And is this a small building, large building?
That's a good sized building. It's actually an old Chevrolet dealership, and I'm in the very back section of the Chevrolet dealer.
Mm-hmm.
It had been out of business for several years when we decided to get the building, and we fill an old Chevrolet dealership up full of old Mopars.
I think that's great. That's priceless. Okay. Well, your number and everything, I think, is being flashed up on the screen.
Okay.
So anyway, so give us the number anyway. How can they reach you?
Oh, okay. My cell phone number is the same as my shop number. Is 567-674-0728. And just to open up a little bit more, you'd ask about how I came up with the name Rare Finds, and
yes.
with it being about my car being an AAR CUDA. The other reason for that is I kind of specialize in finding special cars. You know, I found my father's old car.
Uh-huh.
Well, since then, and since I built that car, is what brought all these other cars to me to build. Well, I've also got a knack for finding other special cars, and for some reason, I seem to gravitate toward them.
Yeah.
I find some of these cars that, you know, they're extremely rare or sought after, and cars you just don't see every day.
Mm-hmm.
So to name the business Rare Finds it just seemed appropriate.
Yeah, I think it's a great name.
It worked out.
It did. And I know when I went into the shop for the first time, folks, it was just a maze of Chrysler. It was Plymouth. It was Dodge. It was unbelievable. And you have a really rare car in there. It's a 58 or 59, no, 60 car? The two-door coupe.
Oh, the 63 Plymouth Sport Fury.
Oh, folks, you should see this car. This is unbelievable. Hey, speaking of photos, do we have that picture of the white car? Because there was a white car on all that. I want to take a look at this, folks. I want you to see this. DJ, tell us about this.
This car is a 74 Plymouth Roadrunner that a good friend of mine has, and he's a Vietnam veteran. And he had talked to me several months back about having me replace the headliner in the car and do some things to his gauges to make them more correct, and he wanted to have a tachometer. So we swapped out his original gauges and put another set of gauges in it that are really close to original also. They just had the tach option instead of non. And we hardwired that in, and then I also pulled his old headliner out that had small holes from rodents, or, you know, it was discolored from the years. And we replaced his white headliner. This car has all white interior also. So he brought it to me the day after Veterans Day, and it seemed appropriate being he's a Vietnam vet, and I had it back to him the following Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But he seems to be tickled with the car, and it's a very nice car, very nice original car, very solid, and that's one of those cars that he's not owned that car for a long time. He found that car on, I believe, eBay, and just did his research and went.
Did his homework and everything.
Well, the thing is you have to be careful with eBay. If you see a car you like, you don't just click the button that you buy it now, because anything can look good in pictures.
Yeah,
you need to see the car in person and do a good inspection.
Yes.
And that car turned out to be a very good buy.
That's good. Good for him.
Exactly. Well, but more so good for his family, because they can all enjoy it, and it didn't have to break the bank.
Yeah. Good point. So, hey, so for all intents and purposes, folks, we all have hobbies. We either garden, or we build things, or we fix things up to sell them. But hobbies are good. Get a hobby. Maybe it's collecting wines. Maybe it's learning about wines. Maybe it's learning how to restore something. In this case, an amazing car. And hobbies are kind of what allow us to keep going. Hobbies keep us on top of things. Hobbies keep us happy. Hobbies keep us motivated. Hobbies keep us from getting into trouble. It's always a good thing. Have a hobby that's safe, but have one. It makes life more pleasurable. It makes life more tolerable. It makes life more interesting. I think in this case, it's been one of the few rare hobbies, and I can say RAARE hobbies in this case, because you got people like DJ Bouchon who knows the process. He knows the philosophies. He knows the business. And there's no reason when you've got a hobby of that you like, something you find that's real enjoyable, something that's going to be enjoyable, there's no reason why you can't contact the people that are knowledgeable, like DJ. I think it makes all the difference in the world. And as a result, I want to thank you very, very much, DJ, for being my guest on the show. I love it, man. I'm anxious to get started on mine, and mine will remain a secret till it's done. So thanks very much, DJ. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can have you back here.
That'd be great.
At some point in the not too distant future.
That'd be great. I enjoyed being here.
Good, super. I'm reminded every day that it's probably one of the few situations where we. DJ mentioned this situation with a car, and it's probably really, really important to remember that this car, for example, was owned by a veteran. Veterans are out there. Veterans are overseas. Veterans are doing all they can to help protect this country. They are doing what they can to help keep matters at bay and in control and at hand overseas. When you see a veteran, whether he's in uniform, whether you see a license plate on a car that says veteran on it, or whether you see a military insignia of one sort or another, when that person gets out of the car, go up and thank that person for their service. It's probably one of the few times you can make a difference. Of all the times you can make a difference, that in particular is much appreciated. And I think that as you go through your day next week, as you go through each day of your week, make an effort to thank somebody for something that maybe they did for you or for a group of people, or something that they were involved in. We're all in this together, and we're all trying to make life a little bit better. And the one thing you don't want to forget in all of this, hobbies aside, remember your family. Say thanks to your family. Say thanks to your mom and dad. Say thanks to your grandparents if you're fortunate enough to have them. If they are still around, if they are living and everything seems to be falling into place, say thanks, because you had to come from somewhere. And it makes life good. It really does. As we close the show out, I want to remind you, do not drink and drive. Do not text and drive. We're always talking about this, and you hear it on television. You see it on television. You hear it on radio. You see it on the internet. And it's just one of those things where we have to keep it in mind. You really do. Be safe on the roads out there. I know there's some of you who are now still coming back from the holiday, and it's probably one of the few times when you're thinking about what's going to happen next week, because you're coming back and you're busy with one thing and another, getting ready for the work days tomorrow. And I want you to keep a couple things in mind. Number one, remember that our prime purpose in this life is to help others. If you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Don't put them down. Make a friend. Befriend somebody. And second, remember that everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Don't make assumptions. Don't speculate. Don't assume. Be happy for what you have. Be grateful for what you have. And make this week a good week. Make your coming week productive. Give yourself a reason to smile. Smiling is great. It's absolutely amazing. It can do wonderful things, and it can make everybody else feel real good. In the coming weeks, Doug Schuster will be coming back to talk about Schuster Beverage Marketing and some new and interesting things going on in his world. And I'm looking forward to that show, as I know you are. Stay with us, but we're glad you came this week. We hope you'll tell your friends, and we hope you'll be back. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.